Imagine waking up one morning, not in your bed, but on a soft linen sheet, sunlight streaming through a grand marble archway. The air smells of incense and lotus flowers. You are in ancient Egypt, nearly 2,000 years ago. There's no electricity, no running water from a tap, no internet, and definitely no modern soap. Yet, within the walls of the royal palaces, a level of luxury existed that still baffles archaeologists today. This was the world of Cleopatra, the last pharaoh of Egypt. Her legendary beauty wasn't just a gift from the gods. It was a masterful blend of science, ancient tradition, and raw political power. So, how did Cleopatra and the Egyptian elite maintain such a pristine and captivating appearance in a world without our modern conveniences? Let's peel back the layers of history and uncover their secrets. First, let's talk about bathing. For us, a shower is a quick, daily routine. For Egyptian royalty, it was an elaborate ritual. They didn't have soap bars. But they had something arguably better. A mix of natron, a natural salt, and oil. This paste was rubbed onto the skin to cleanse and exfoliate. After cleansing, they would immerse themselves in baths infused with milk and honey. We've all heard the stories of Cleopatra's milk baths, and they weren't just a myth. The lactic acid in milk is a natural alpha-hydroxy acid, which gently dissolves dead skin cells, leaving the skin incredibly soft and bright. The honey was a natural humectant, drawing moisture into the skin, and it also had powerful antibacterial properties. So, this wasn't just about luxury, it was a sophisticated skincare treatment. After the bath came moisturization. The Egyptian sun is relentless, so protecting the skin was paramount. They used a variety of oils, with moringa, castor, and sesame oils being among the most popular. These weren't just slathered on. They were often infused with fragrant flowers and herbs, like lily, myrrh, and frankincense. This created a perfumed oil that not only nourished the skin but also acted as a personal fragrance that would last all day. Imagine walking through the palace, your skin glowing in a subtle, exotic scent following you wherever you went. This was the signature of Egyptian nobility. Now, let's get to the most iconic part of the Egyptian look. The makeup. That dramatic dark eyeliner wasn't just for show. It was called kohl, and both men and women wore it. Kohl was made by grinding a mineral called galena, which is a lead sulfide, into a fine powder and mixing it with oil or animal fat to create a paste. They used a small, thin stick made of wood, ivory, or bone to apply it, creating that famous cat-eye look. While we now know lead is toxic, the Egyptians believed the kohl had magical healing properties. They thought it protected their eyes from the harsh sun's glare and kept away eye infections. And in a way, they might have been right. Modern studies suggest that at low levels, the lead-based substances in kohl could have stimulated the immune system to fight off certain bacterial infections, common in the Nile region. So, it was both a beauty statement and a form of ancient preventative medicine. Beyond the eyes, they used a red ochre paste, a type of clay mixed with water or oil to stain their lips and cheeks. This gave them a healthy, vibrant flush. It was a simple, natural blush and lipstick, all in one. For eyeshadow, they would grind up malachite, a green copper, or to create a striking green pigment. This green eyeshadow was associated with the god Horus, and was believed to offer protection and power. It wasn't just about looking beautiful, it was about embodying divinity and authority. Every color, every line had a meaning. Even their hair was a canvas for expression. Wigs were extremely common, worn by men and women of all social classes, not just the elite. They were made from human hair or plant fibers, and were often intricately braided and adorned with beads and jewels. Wigs served multiple purposes. They protected the scalp from the sun, kept the head cool, and prevented lice. Many Egyptians, including Cleopatra, would shave their heads completely for hygiene, and then wear these elaborate wigs as a status symbol. Cleopatra herself was known to have a vast collection of wigs for different occasions, each one more ornate than the last. So, the next time you see a depiction of Cleopatra, remember that her beauty routine was far more than just vanity. It was a complex system of hygiene, medicine, and ritual. It was a display of wealth, a connection to the divine, and a tool of power. From milk baths and fragrant oils to protective kohl and symbolic wigs, The ancient Egyptians were true pioneers of the beauty industry. Their secrets, passed down through millennia, show us that the desire to look and feel our best is a timeless human endeavor. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more journeys into the past. Ever wondered what it was really like to live in ancient Egypt? We all have this image of towering pyramids, golden pharaohs, and mystical gods. But for the vast majority of people, life was a world away from the glittering treasures we see in museums. Let's travel back in time and explore the two very different worlds of ancient Egypt. The story of Egypt begins and ends with the Nile River. This incredible waterway was the lifeblood of the entire civilization. Every year, its predictable floods would deposit rich black silt along its banks, creating a paradise for farming in the middle of a desert. For over 90% of the population, the farmers, the laborers, the servants, the Nile dictated their entire existence. Imagine waking up before the sun, your home a simple mud brick hut. Your day would be spent in the fields under the scorching sun, planting wheat and barley, or tending to livestock. It was back-breaking work, all done with simple hand tools. The food was basic: bread, beer, onions, and maybe some fish from the river. Life was a constant cycle of hard labor, tied to the seasons and the rhythm of the Nile. These were the people who built the pyramids, who carved the temples, and who fed the entire nation. Their lives were simple, often harsh, but filled with a deep connection to their land and their gods, whom they believed controlled the harvest and their fate. But just a stone's throw away, a completely different reality existed. Step inside the palace walls, and you enter a world of unimaginable luxury and power. This was the realm of the pharaoh, the nobles, and the high priests. For them, life wasn't about survival. It was about showcasing their divine status. The pharaoh was considered a living god on earth, the intermediary between the heavens and humanity. Their homes were sprawling complexes adorned with vibrant paintings, intricate carvings, and lush gardens. They wore fine linen clothes, elaborate jewelry made of gold and precious stones like lapis lazuli, and complex wigs. Instead of simple bread and beer, they feasted on roasted meats, exotic fruits cakes sweetened with honey, and fine wine. Their days weren't spent toiling in the fields, but in governing the kingdom, performing religious rituals, and enjoying lavish entertainment. Musicians, dancers, and acrobats would perform at grand banquets. Servants were everywhere, ready to attend to their every need, from fanning them to keep cool to preparing their elaborate meals. This luxury wasn't just for pleasure. It was a powerful statement. The gold, the grand architecture, the abundance of food, it all served to reinforce the idea that the royalty was chosen by the gods, separate from and superior to ordinary mortals. Their magnificent tombs, like the pyramids, were built to ensure this divine status continued for eternity in the afterlife. So, while the common farmer prayed to the gods for a good harvest, the pharaoh lived as one, two worlds, coexisting along the same river, one built on sweat and soil, the other on gold and divinity. It's this incredible contrast that makes ancient Egypt so fascinating. It wasn't just one story, but millions of different stories all woven together by the life-giving Nile. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into the story of one of history's most famous figures, Cleopatra. When you hear her name, what's the first thing that comes to mind? For most of us, it's her legendary beauty. Her dramatic romances with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, and maybe that whole story with the snake. And yes, those things are part of her legend, but they're only a tiny piece of the puzzle. The real Cleopatra was so much more than just a pretty face. She was a powerhouse of intellect, ambition, and political genius. Let's rewind the clock a bit. Cleopatra, the seventh Cleopatra, wasn't just born into royalty. She was groomed for it. The Ptolemaic dynasty, of which she was the last active ruler, placed a huge emphasis on education, especially for its heirs. Forget the Hollywood image of a queen lounging by the pool. Young Cleopatra was hitting the books hard. She studied at the Musam in Alexandria, which was basically the ancient world's equivalent of a top-tier university. This was the intellectual heart of the Hellenistic world, home to the great library of Alexandria. Here, she was tutored by the greatest scholars of her time in subjects like philosophy, rhetoric, mathematics, and astronomy. She wasn't just a student, she was a brilliant one. One of her most incredible assets was her gift for languages. Ancient writers like Plutarch tell us she was the first Ptolemaic ruler who actually bothered to learn the Egyptian language. Think about that for a second. Her family had ruled Egypt for nearly 300 years, but she was the first one to speak the language of her own people. This wasn't just a hobby, it was a masterful political move. It allowed her to connect directly with her subjects, bypassing translators and earning their loyalty and respect. But she didn't stop there. It said she spoke as many as 9 languages, including Greek, Parthian, Hebrew, and Latin. When foreign ambassadors came to her court, she could often converse with them in their own native tongue. Imagine the advantage they gave her in high-stakes negotiations. She wasn't just understanding their words. She was understanding their culture, their nuances, and their intentions. This linguistic talent made her an incredibly effective diplomat and a formidable opponent. Beyond her languages and classical education, Cleopatra had a keen scientific mind. She was genuinely interested in medicine and chemistry. Some historical accounts suggest she even wrote medical and cosmetic treatises, though sadly, none have survived. She experimented with poisons, not for sinister purposes, but to understand their effects, knowledge that was crucial for a ruler in an era of constant political intrigue and assassination plots. Her famous beauty routines weren't just about vanity. They were a form of applied chemistry. The kohl eyeliner she wore wasn't just for looks. It contained lead salts that helped protect her eyes from the harsh Egyptian sun and common eye infections. Her milk baths, legendary for keeping her skin soft, were an early form of chemical exfoliation using lactic acid. She was using science to project an image of divine, timeless beauty, which in turn reinforced her power and her status as a living goddess. This brings us to her political acumen. Cleopatra inherited a kingdom that was in decline, caught between the ambitions of the crumbling Ptolemaic dynasty and the rising power of Rome. She navigated this treacherous political landscape with incredible skill. Her relationships with Caesar and Antony were not just passionate love affairs. They were strategic alliances. She used her charm, her intellect, and her vast wealth to secure their support and protect Egypt's independence. She wasn't a pawn in their games. She was a player in her own right, fighting to preserve her throne and her country's sovereignty. She commanded armies and navies and made bold decisions that shaped the course of the Roman world. So, the next time you think of Cleopatra, I hope you'll see beyond the myth of the seductress. See the scholar, the linguist, the scientist, and the brilliant political strategist. She was a woman who used every tool at her disposal: her mind, her education, and yes, her beauty to rule in a man-s world and leave a mark on history that has lasted for over 2,000 years. The real story of Cleopatra is far more compelling than In the dazzling world of ancient Egypt, your appearance wasn't just about looking good, it was a direct reflection of your status, your power, and even your connection to the gods. Think of it like this. Your body was a canvas, and how you presented it told a story about who you were. For the Egyptians, being clean wasn't just about hygiene. It was about purity. Spotless, smooth skin was seen as a sign of a righteous and orderly life. This is why they went to such extraordinary lengths for skincare. They created scrubs from sea salt and alabaster powders, and moisturized with oils like moringa and castor oil to keep their skin glowing under the harsh desert sun. And then there was the scent. In a world without modern plumbing, smelling good was the ultimate luxury. Perfume was a symbol of immense wealth and divinity. The rich and powerful would anoint themselves with complex fragrances made from myrrh, frankincense, and exotic flowers like the blue lotus. To smell divine was to be considered closer to the gods themselves. Priests even used specific scents in temples to purify the space and call upon the deities. So, when you walked into a room, your fragrance announced your arrival and your importance long before you even spoke a word. This powerful connection between appearance and divine favor was not lost on Egypt's rulers. A pharaoh who looked healthy, radiant, and godlike was seen as having the blessings of the heavens. Their divine appearance was proof of their legitimate right to rule. If a pharaoh appeared weak or unkempt, it could be interpreted as a sign that the gods had withdrawn their favor, potentially leading to instability and unrest in the kingdom. Therefore, maintaining a perfect, almost ethereal image was a crucial part of political strategy. Royal artisans were masters of propaganda, carving idealized, youthful, and powerful images of their rulers on temple walls for all to see. And no one, perhaps in all of history, understood this game of appearances better than Cleopatra. She wasn't just a queen. She was a master of branding and public relations. Historical accounts, often written by her Roman enemies, debate her actual physical beauty. But what no one disputes is her mesmerizing charisma and her absolute command of presentation. Cleopatra knew that to hold power, especially as a woman in a man's world, she had to be more than just a ruler. She had to be a living goddess. She used every tool at her disposal. Her grand entrances were legendary. When she first met Mark Antony, she didn't just walk into a room. She sailed up the river, Kidnos, in a magnificent golden barge with purple sails, herself dressed as the goddess Venus Aphrodite, surrounded by the air was thick with the scent of expensive perfumes, deliberately burned to create an intoxicating and unforgettable experience. She was crafting a narrative, one of divine authority, immense wealth, and irresistible allure. Cleopatra's famous beauty rituals were also a key part of this strategy. We've all heard the stories of her bathing in donkey milk. This wasn't just for soft skin. It was a display of extravagant wealth. It took a massive herd of donkeys to produce enough milk for a single bath. This sent a clear message. She could afford the unaffordable. Her iconic eye makeup, the bold kohl liner, wasn't just for beauty. It was believed to have magical protective properties, warding off the evil eye and infections. By embracing these traditions, she was connecting herself to the long line of powerful pharaohs before her. Ultimately, Cleopatra's power lay in her intelligence and her understanding that perception is reality. She knew that by looking divine, smelling divine, and acting with the confidence of a goddess, she could make people believe she truly was one. She used her appearance not as a vanity project, but as a political weapon, a tool of diplomacy, and a symbol of Egypt's enduring strength and mystique. Her legacy isn't just about her political maneuvering. It's a testament to the timeless power of a carefully crafted image. She proved that sometimes the most effective... Did you know that for most of history, taking a bath every day was practically unheard of? Imagine having to hull every single drop of water you use by hand, bucket by bucket, from a well or a river. It was a massive amount of work. So for the average person, a full-body wash was a rare luxury. Maybe once a week if they were lucky. But for the royal family, things were completely different. Bathing wasn't just about getting clean. It was a cornerstone of their entire lifestyle. It was a ritual deeply connected to cleanliness, religion, and even beauty standards. Let's dive into the world of royal baths, starting with cleanliness. In an era plagued by disease, royals understood, at least partially, the link between hygiene and health. While the science wasn't there yet, they knew that staying clean helped keep sickness at bay. Palaces had dedicated bathing chambers, sometimes incredibly elaborate ones. Servants would work for hours, heating water over fires and carrying it in heavy cauldrons to fill massive tubs, which could be made of wood, marble, or even precious metals. They'd add fragrant herbs like rosemary, lavender, and mint to the water, not just for a pleasant smell, but because these plants were believed to have purifying properties. So, a royal bath was a major production, a clear sign of status that set them apart from the common folk. It was a visible statement. We are clean, we are healthy, we are superior. But it went much deeper than just scrubbing away dirt. Religion played a huge role in the culture of bathing. Across many civilizations, from ancient Egypt to medieval Europe, water was seen as a powerful symbol of spiritual purity. Immersion in water was believed to wash away not just physical grime, but also sins and negative energies. Think about religious ceremonies, like baptism that's a direct link. For royalty, who were often considered divinely appointed or even descendants of gods, this spiritual cleansing was essential. Before major events like a coronation, a royal wedding, or even heading into a crucial battle, a king or queen would often perform a ritual bath. This wasn't a quick dip. It was a solemn, meditative practice. It was about preparing their body and soul, ensuring they were worthy to rule, to make important decisions, and to communicate with the divine. It reinforced their sacred status in the eyes of their people. Finally, let's talk about beauty, because who doesn't want to look their best, especially if you're a queen? For royal women, the bath was their personal spa. It was a critical part of their beauty regimen, a time for pampering and preservation. They didn't just use plain water. Famous beauties throughout history had their own secret recipes. Cleopatra, for instance, was legendary for her milk and honey baths. The lactic acid in milk is a natural exfoliant that smooths the skin, while honey is a fantastic moisturizer. It sounds decadent, and it was, but it worked. Other royals used infusions of rose petals to soften their skin and leave a delicate scent. They'd add expensive oils and salts to their baths to keep their skin looking youthful and radiant. In a world without modern cosmetics, these natural treatments were their secret weapons. A glowing complexion was a sign of health, wealth, and high status. The bath was where the magic happened, a private sanctuary where they could maintain the flawless image required of royalty. So, while the average person was saving up their energy for a weekly splash, the royals were indulging in a complex and meaningful ritual. Their baths were a powerful mix of practical hygiene, sacred duty, and luxurious self-care. It was a symbol of their power, their connection to the divine, and their place at the very top of the social ladder. It really makes you appreciate just turning on a faucet, doesn't it? The simple act of taking a shower today is a luxury that even kings and queens of the past could only dream of having so easily. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this glimpse into royal life, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more.